That night, Ola read the forbidden story, the cursed story, and something happened. In a small village surrounded by thick forest, the night was calm and peaceful, with the gentle breeze moving through the tall grasses. And on nights like this, stories are told, but some stories were never meant to be told. In that small village, a young girl named Ola was known for her storytelling skills, just like her grandmother. Among Ola's story listeners were Ola's four best childhood friends. They are always eager to listen to her moonlight stories. Every night, the young girl leaves their hut to hear Ola's stories. And one night, something happened. That night, Ola and her friends were seated in their usual spot, but Ola chose to tell a forbidden story against her grandmother's warning. As the first word left her lips, the atmosphere changed. The wind became stronger, and the burning fire behind them flicked. The book began to glow. Two red glowing eyes were visible from the dark forest behind them, as one of the girls noticed and pointed at it. Out of the thick forest, a giant shadow emerged. The girl saw it and became afraid. The shadow emerged fully behind them and spoke. Allah continued the story. At that moment, Ola realized that the story she just told had summoned the shadow, just as her grandmother has warned. A long, long time ago, Ola's grandmother, Uju, was a good storyteller. Both young and old always listened to her stories. Every evening, all the villagers leave their huts and gather at the village square, where Uju will always sit and tell them lovely stories. She did not just tell stories, she put smiles on the villagers' faces. Most times, on her way to the farm, to the stream, and to the market, the villagers will always want her to tell them stories. Sometimes children will sneak into her hut just to hear her lovely stories, while some of them fall asleep while listening to her story. Uju always tell her stories with so much joy and satisfaction, which made the whole village love her, that they often bring her gifts, while some mothers instruct their children to fetch water for her, while some children sweep compound and run other errands for her. But one evening, Uju's storytelling became her nightmare. That evening, Uju has just finished telling her stories at the village square. She decided to take a secret path to her hut, as she does not want anyone to delay her from getting home on time. As she walked past the lonely path, she felt that a shadow was following her. But she turned around and couldn't see anything. She was confused and frightened, but she hastened her footsteps and walked more faster. And in no time, she arrived at her hut. As soon as she arrived, she took a deep breath and felt a sense of relief. As soon as she entered her hut, she felt strange. She felt a cold chills all over her body. And then the shadow appeared right there in her hut. Uju froze in fear. Uju asked the shadow what it wanted, and the shadow pointed at the storybook in Uju's hands and said, "Continue the story, the one you just read to the villagers." At that point, Uju realized that the story she just read to the villagers had summoned the shadow. She told the shadow to forgive her and leave, but the shadow insisted that she must continue the story. Uju summoned courage and said to the shadow, "I do not read to shadows, but I read to the villagers alone." Those words angered the shadow. But just as the shadow was about to attack, the sun arose and stopped the shadow from attacking Uju, and the shadow vanished, promising to come back, but in a more deadly form. To prevent the shadow from returning, Uju took the storybook and hid it inside her box and never to read it again. The next night, Uju sat in her hut, quietly in fear, thinking of what next to do if the shadow shows up again. And from that day, Uju only told the villagers stories she has made up, and not the ones from the storybook. And the villagers still loved her stories. Years later, when Ola was 10 years old, she discovered the old storybook that Uju has hidden all these years. But just as she was about opening the book, Uju stopped her and then gave her a strict warning that she should not read any stories from that book, and especially not under the moonlight. She called the story a cursed story. Ajanike was a beautiful and a vibrant woman who was known for her story writing skills. She wrote a lot of beautiful stories, especially about nature. Every evening, she takes a walk around the village to get inspirations of what to write. Her best view is usually the village stream. She will always sit on the rock in the stream and watch children fetch water, watch women wash their clothes and fetch water. She listens to the birds sing as the waters flow freely. Sometimes she goes to the market. She sits and looks at all the activities going on in the market, and she takes her time to write down everything she experienced. Even in the farmland, she was always writing stories. One day, Ajanike became sick. She was very sick that she couldn't go out to get inspirations for any story. But somehow, she managed to write a beautiful story about herself. She used her last strength and her last breath to put every word together. And by the next morning, Ajanike was dead. The whole village were saddened by her death. Shortly after her death, her storybook was taken to the village hall, where different storytellers used it in telling their story. As the shadow tried to attack them, the girls fled into the village, screaming aloud. Their voices alerted the villagers as they stepped out of their huts with lanterns to know what the shout was all about. The girls ran as fast as they could till they got to the village. The next morning, the villagers gathered and Ola was brought forward. They inquired of her about last night's incident, and she explained everything to them. The village head yelled at her, "What have you done? You couldn't keep just one instruction." Ola knelt down and pleaded, "Please, my elders, forgive me. I am sorry." The villagers stood there confused and silent. The village head spoke calmly to Ola. "The deed has been done. We just have to find a way out." The village head spoke with a determined face as he stamped his staff on the ground and said, "Tonight we will face the monster together." The whole village agreed as the rest of the elders stamped their staffs in agreement. The night came and the villagers gathered in the village square with their weapons ready to fight the monster. As they all gathered, the shadow appeared behind them. Fear gripped them, but they stood their ground. Allah was the first to confront the shadow. Then the village head stepped in. The old man spoke to the shadow. "What do you want from us? Go away." Those words seemed to anger the shadow. As it fumes in anger with a great rage, he spoke with its voice echoing through the night. "My stories you all enjoy, the same stories that have kept you all happy and entertained all these years. Someone wrote those stories, I wrote those stories, but never have any of you accorded respect to the writer. The last chapter of the story was written for the purpose of keeping me alive in your memories, but none of you have ever bothered to read it. Do you even know my name?" The old man bowed his head as he remembered the legendary story writer Ajanike, as his mother has once told him about. He immediately went down on his knees and cried out, "Please forgive us, our dear mother Ajanike." The rest of the villagers also knelt down and pleaded with Ajanike. Their plea was heard as the giant became softened, and gradually its anger faded away, and Ajanike returned back to her original form. She spoke to the villagers. "My anger have I let go. My resentment have I put aside. From this moment on, you all can enjoy the stories and have your peace. But remember this, always give honor to whom honor is due. Do not neglect other people's good as you enjoy your own pleasure." With those words, Ajanike bid her final goodbye as she vanished. The next morning, the villagers gathered and did something remarkable in the honor of the legendary Ajanike.
We celebrate Ajanike. The market is Ajanike.